Tell us about your most amazing day.
It was in 1993 in the Ali Nui Haha Channel of Hawaii, between the Big Island and Maui. The channel itself is notorious in the Hawaiian Islands for having whatever the winds are on the islands, it'll be 10 to 15 knots higher in the channels, always. Because on the Big Island, you've got two 12,000-foot peaks, Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea. And on the island of Maui, which is across a 22-mile channel, is the island on another mountain that's 11,000 feet. So what you've got is the wind funneling all the way across the Pacific, the trades, hitting this point and funneling into this little channel. We were over there cruising, and I was visiting some friends of mine that run the Sunset Cruises out of Waikoloa. And as we were going to sail over to McKenna Beach on Maui, and they said, well, can we go with you? Because they wanted the adventure. So we take off, and we're sailing across the channel.
Which boat are you in? Is this
on the Lost Soul? It's a Formosa 56,
okay, yeah.
42-ton, anything but a racing boat. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the ultimate Taiwan turkey. This thing is a lead sled. Okay? So the sail over was phenomenal. I mean, it was it couldn't have been better. 120-degree wind right off of our stern, blowing 25 to 30 knots. And we didn't reef, of course. And so we're doing, in a boat that is normally doing 7.5 to 8 knots, we're doing 11, 12 knots, and we're fighting over who gets the wheel every time we surf down a wave. And it was exciting as hell. This is part A. We get over to McKenna Beach and topped off the speed. Best speed we ever got in a boat was 13 knots. Jody was at the wheel, and she kept razzing us. So we decided to turn around and come back. But the other two skippers had to go back on a plane, so it's just Jody and I. Meanwhile, the front moved in. It's blowing 50 in the channel. It's blowing 35 to 40 behind the island. We get up at dawn. The weather says the next day the wind is going to come around right from where we're going. At this time, the wind had clocked around to where sailing back to the Big Island was going to be the wind right 120 degrees, right up our shoulder. So we figure it's better to go across in 55 knots of wind with it than the 35 it would drop to tomorrow, but it would be right on our nose. So we took off with a triple reef main and a handkerchief of a head sail. We pull out behind the lee of the island, and we're doing fine. We're doing 8.5, 9 knots with no sail. I mean, just a triple reef main and a mizzen. And we're sailing along beautifully. The autopilot wouldn't handle it. Seas were running about 15 feet to 20 feet. So we got like 30-foot faces. That's not bad. But as we get really out into the middle of the channel, now we're getting the crossed seas. We're starting to get a little bit of a cross. And we get, well, let me put it this way. I look forward, and all of a sudden, the head sail, which all we were using was really a reef staysail, started to luff. And I like, what? And I looked behind me, and there is an 80-foot wall of water, and it's clear on top. It was a rogue wave, and it was about to break. And we're moving along at 8.5 knots, and we're quartering the seas, so the wave's going like this, and we're going like this. But all of a sudden, here's this. We got a 70-foot stick, and it's 10 foot over our stick, and blanketing the sails. But boats float, so we start floating up the face of this thing. Jody's sitting in the cockpit. I'm on the wheel. I don't have a harness on or anything. As we get up high enough in that wave, the 55 knots of wind hits the sail. And so Lost Soul starts to lay down. As she's laying down, we're still doing 8.5 knots, probably 8 knots now, so we're cutting through the water, and then the wave broke. We inverted. The mast went like this, I mean, literally, we came down to, 2 knots instantly, but went under the water like that. And then the keel, because it's a keel boat, catches the weight. Now, by now, Jody's laying on her back looking up into fish swimming on, over the boat. I hooked my arm into the wheel and held on like this because I didn't have a harness on. And the water literally broke completely over the boat. I didn't get wet. And I was outdoor. I was covered by the high side of the boat. And it broke over like this. And then the boat just pops right back up again. And as soon as the wind hits the sail, it steadies like that. And so it probably took 10 seconds in all. But those 10 seconds lasted about 30 minutes. And then I got up, and just then, the water is coming out of the sail like Niagara Falls. And I'm looking, and it's a bright sunny day, and I'm thinking, wow, that's really beautiful. And I look down at Jody, and she's like this. And I said, this really shows that the difference between an ordeal and an adventure is your attitude. This is great. And Jody looks up at me and she says, sometimes it's just an ordeal. And so there's the difference.